Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter number 18, text number 6. Satudyamano aridurukka tomarair tamstragra gam gam upalaksha bhitam todam rishan niragad ambumadya rahahata sakareno yathe baha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Although the Lord was pained by the sharp-like abusive words of the demons, He bore the pain. But seeing that the earth on the ends of His tusk was frightened, He rose out of the water just as an elephant emerges with its female companion when assailed by an alligator. Purport. The Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand that the Lord has feelings. The Lord is satisfied if someone offers Him a nice prayer, and similarly if someone decries His existence or calls Him by ill names, God is dissatisfied. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is decried by the Mayavadi philosophers, who are almost demons. They say that God has no head, no form, no existence, and no legs, hands or other bodily limbs. In other words, they say that He is dead or lame. All these misconceptions of the Supreme Lord are a source of dissatisfaction to Him. He is never pleased with such atheistic descriptions. In this case, although the Lord felt sorrow from the piercing words of the demons, He delivered the earth for the satisfaction of the demigods, who are ever His devotees. The conclusion is that God is as sentient as we are. He is satisfied by our prayers and dissatisfied by our harsh words against Him. In order to give protection to His devotee, He is always ready to tolerate insulting words from the atheists. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So this chapter, the battle between Lord Bor and Hiranyaksha. So in the previous verses, we have read how Hiranyaksha used very abusive words, and in this verse it's mentioned the Lord was pained by the shaft-like abusive words of the demon, but He bore the pain. So Prabhupada in the purport mentions the Lord also has feelings. He is a sentient being. Just like we have feelings, we are sentient beings. We are Amsha of the Lord. We being Amsha of the Lord Himself, who is Purana, who is the source of all these Amshas, or is the complete whole, the absolute truth. He is also a person, a sentient being. And Prabhupada mentions, because He has feelings, Bhavagrahai Janardana, when someone offers prayers, the Lord is very pleased. We being Amsha, we also have the tendency, if someone calls us by our name, or someone praises us, or glorifies us, we also feel some pleasure. Although that's not our constitutional position to be glorified, our constitutional position is to glorify. We are predominated, and our constitutional position is to glorify the predominator. So just like, to give you a crude example, we also experience pain and pleasure if someone praises us, we feel pleasure. If someone criticizes us, passes a sarcastic remark, we feel pained. So here the demon used abusive words and it pained the Lord. All said and done, the demon also is Amsha of the Lord. And the Lord is said to be Shadaishwarya Purnam. He has unlimited strength, unlimited wealth, unlimited knowledge, unlimited fame, unlimited beauty, unlimited renunciation. And other good qualities which we see is also there. The Lord is embodiment of such good qualities. Titikshva karunikaha. Titikshva means tolerant. So Lord is also very tolerant. Sometimes we wonder. Just 2 days back somebody asked me this question. Very sarcastically. Where was Lord when the Muslims invaded and ransacked the temples, destroyed the temples, destroyed the deities? Actually, it can be very bewildering. Unless we have proper Shravanam and we have understood. So this person who was asking me appeared to be he was not an atheist, but from his question it was quite evident that he is bewildered. Where was the Lord? Sometimes it becomes difficult to reconcile. If Lord is all powerful, He is the supreme controller, not a blade of grass moves without His sanction, then how do we reconcile all these things happening in the world? So the Lord is very, very tolerant. The jivas who are His amshas can sometimes decry the Lord, can abuse the Lord, can become envious of Him, can blaspheme the Lord. He has given the free will. Free will means we have a choice to do whatever we want. We can decry the Lord, we can blaspheme the Lord, we can glorify the Lord, we can pray to the Lord, we can abuse the Lord. He tolerates. On one side we see temples were ransacked, deities were, so to say, broken. The Lord tolerated. No doubt in this world, every action has a reaction. Newton also pointed out this. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. When we see that, we wonder why the Lord is not. Is the Lord really there? The Lord tolerates. And other side, when we see some calamities, when we see some people suffering very miserably, again, we get bewildered. Why the Lord is so cruel? Why the Lord is so unkind? The fact is, we all are getting what is due to us. We can abuse the Lord has given us a free will, but we will get back the reaction for our deeds. So here, as I mentioned, Lord Shadaishwarya Purnam, He has many, many good qualities and the embodiment of all such good qualities. One of the quality He is embodying here is He bore the insult. Because He has given us a free will, we can abuse the Lord, we can blaspheme the Lord. There are great atheists in this world who very strongly put forth arguments God does not exist. He gives the intelligence. Even we as devotees, sometimes we may act in ways, although in our words we can say that yes, we are devotees of Krishna, we are surrendered to Krishna, we depend on Krishna, but sometimes our actions can prove otherwise. Action speaks louder than words. The Lord is there in the heart. He is witness to all our actions, all our feelings. Sometimes we have an element of distrust or faithlessness. Sometimes when devotees also go through some rough patches or challenges in life, our faith in the Lord can shake. One time there was a devotee, Amitasana Dasa. He was foreign-bodied. He was from America. He had come to India and he was going through a lot of challenges in his life. So he came to Vrindavan, and because of all the ups and downs in his life, even his Krishna consciousness was getting affected. His chanting, his sadhana. So he, just like we go through challenges, so we try to find various remedies. We go to the doctor, we go to somebody. So he went to an astrologer. And the astrologer pointed out that there are influence of the stars, Rahu planet, and because of that he is going through this challenge. And to counteract the influence of Rahu planets, he should wear a yantra. So as advised by the astrologer, he bought the yantra, he wore it, quite a big one, and it was quite visible. Wore it on his neck. So he was quite satisfied, okay, now at least. And his whole objective was that how somehow he could, counter all the evil influences which is there in his life, and then he can peacefully chant Hare Krishna, peacefully practice Krishna consciousness. So he came to the temple. Just as he was entering the temple, Krishna Balram temple, another very senior disciple of Prabhupada, he stopped him. He said, "Where are you coming from?" And this yantra, what he was wearing in the neck, was quite visible. So he said, "What is this?" So he told, "I had gone to the astrologer and he has given me this yantra and he has told that it will counter all the influence of the Rahu planet." So then he immediately stopped him there and said, "But Prabhupada has never asked us to go to astrologer. Prabhupada said we should have faith in Krishna, sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva pape." He chanted that shloka. Krishna will counter all the evil influences. We have to just surrender to him. Krishna is saying, "Mam ekam." Why are you going to an astrologer? So he said, "Why don't you go and meet Prabhupada?" In the meantime, this devotee went and told Prabhupada, "Prabhupada, this is what has happened. This devotee has gone to an astrologer and he's got this yantra, he's wearing that yantra to counter the influences of Rahu planet." So this devotee went and met Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada saw him. He said, "Where had you gone?" So he told him, "I had gone." "Who is he? How much did you pay him?" So Prabhupada was quite unhappy. And then he said, Srila Prabhupada quoted the verse, "Sarva dharman parityajya." He said the whole shloka, 18.66, and Prabhupada said, if you just surrender to Krishna, Krishna will, with a slight kick, annihilate 1,00,000 Rahu planets. If you just surrender to Krishna, Krishna with a slight kick, not full kick, slight kick, can annihilate 1,00,000 Rahu planets. So, even we sometimes, again we are conditioned souls, faith is also, only a pure devotee has complete dependence on the Lord. We have examples of great devotees like Prahlad. He was thrown in a pit of snakes. Imagine hissing snake. Even one snake, if we see from a distance, we get fearful. So we may not have that faith, and our actions prove that. The Lord is there in our heart. He is witness to all our feelings, all our actions. And sometimes the Lord is pained. We may chant, but then our actions prove otherwise. We may not have dependence on the Lord. We may not have faith in His protection. The Lord tolerates. Because the Lord is very tolerant, we are all continuing in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, even as devotees, we end up doing so many nonsense things, which is very painful to the Lord, painful to the spiritual master. They are very tolerant, they are very forgiving, very kind, very merciful. Again we fall down. Again they give us an opportunity. So long as we somehow, because just like a child when he is learning to walk, he cannot just run all of a sudden. He will fall down. And many times when we also make mistakes, we fall down. One thing is, yes, we should feel there's an element of guilt. But beyond a point, we shouldn't lament. Learn from the mistake. The Lord is very tolerant. Sometimes people also say, I've done so many sinful activities in the past. What is the hope for me? The Lord is very forgiving. We try our best not to repeat those mistakes. We try our best to not commit sinful activities intentionally. Unintentionally, by the force of kala, guna, karma, sometimes mistakes happen. We move on. We beg forgiveness. We offer our prayers. We beg for strength and move on. So here, just like Prabhupada, that devotee was telling, we are following a process. Adho, Shraddha, Tata, Sadhu, Sangha, Bhajan, Kriya, Anartha, all the misgivings, all the doubts, all the faithlessness what we have. Just like Prabhupada is saying, Mayavadi flood, they don't even have faith in the Lord tolerates. Then a stage comes Nishtha, firm faith. Then we don't doubt. Then we have strong conviction in the presence of the Lord, in the protection of the Lord. We cannot artificially imitate that stage. I gave example of Prahlad Maharaj. There's a very nice conversation in Perfect Question, Perfect Answer book where one devotee asked Prabhupada, many times we come across prasadam which is spoilt. Sometimes prasadam which is left over for many days, you may see some fungus or you may say something. So he asked Prabhupada, can we honor that prasadam? Can we take that prasadam? So Prabhupada says, for a pure devotee, it does not matter, he'll honor it. Even if it is apparently spoiled with fungus. Because he is not in bodily concept. He is completely at the spiritual platform, transcendental. When he takes prasadam also, he is just absorbing the transcendence. He is unaffected. But he says, neophyte devotees or devotees like us should not imitate pure devotees. If the prasadam is spoiled, we cannot imitate pure devotees. Okay, let me also eat, I'll not be affected. So, Prabhupada many times talked about imitation and following in the footsteps of pure devotees. There's a difference between the two. One time in Vrindavan, devotees, somehow the word started spreading that if a person passes stool one time in a day, he's a yogi. If he passes 2 times, he's a bhogi. And more than 2 times, he's a rogi. So sometimes devotees also, they want to show off. There's some kind of a competition. So some devotees would hold on. And somehow the news reached Prabhupada and one devotee goes, and some devotees, even though they may have stomach ache, but somehow they hold on because they want to prove that they are yogis. So when Prabhupada heard that, he said, is it? Devotees are doing it? Acha? He was quite surprised. Conditioned souls, all the envy, jealousy, want to prove a point, want to show that they are great devotees. Pure devotee of the Lord has none of these agendas. Someone praises, it's fine. Someone blasphemes, it's fine. Someone, because they are absorbed in the Lord. We conditioned souls are our Satchidananda, we project in various things. So Prabhupada said, Acha, and then he told a very humorous story to demonstrate that how devotees sometimes imitate. He said there was one time a clerk in the office, he was assigned by his supervisor the task of copying, making fair notes. There was a rough book. Sometimes in earlier times, unlike present times, you have soft copies, it's all in the computer, you can take a backup. There could be some gazettes or some kind of official papers, and after 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, you make a fresh copy. You write it again. So he was assigned the task of making a fair copy of something which was there already in a book, which was now worn out. So while he was copying, suddenly he got up from his seat and he was jumping all around the room trying to catch something. So the boss came in and he's wondering what's happening to him. He's supposed to be sitting in his seat and writing, suddenly he's jumping and trying to catch something. So he asked him, what are you doing? What are you up to? He said, I'm trying to catch a fly. He said, why? He said, come. See in this book here, in this original book there's a fly which is smashed and pasted here. It could have happened 30 years back, 40 years back, somebody was writing and the book was folded, fly came in and it got smashed. And the fly was there in the book and he wants to fear that fly by copying what was there already. Without understanding the intent, if we blindly follow. That's why bhakti is not just sentimental stuff. Bhakti Vedanta, it should be backed with proper understanding, proper knowledge. Surrender also is not a sentimental thing. Many times people at a very sentimental level. So bhakti has to be backed with proper understanding. The faith in the Lord is not at a very sentimental level, at a mental level. It has to be backed with tapasya, backed with purification, backed with anartha nivritti, backed with proper knowledge. And when we are backed with proper knowledge, then we will not imitate. On one side, yes, we have faith in the Lord. Other side, whatever needs to be done as a matter of duty will be done. Even though a devotee may take some preventive measures, apparently may appear to be taking some protective steps, still he has complete faith in the protection of the Lord. Mare Krishna rakhe Krishna mare ke. He has the faith that although I may take so many steps, ultimately if the Lord sanctions, I will be protected. Otherwise, you may have best of doctors, you may have best of medicines, but if Krishna does not protect, the patient will die. So here Prabhupada also mentions in the purport that the Lord, irrespective of the words spoken by the board, seeing that Mother Earth was frightened because Mother Earth was inundated, seeing the earth on the end of his tusk was frightened, he rose out of the water just an elephant emerges with its female companion when assailed by an alligator. So then Prabhupada says, in order to give protection to his devotee, he is always ready to tolerate inserting words from the atheists. Even when the Lord Krishna took the vow not to fight in the battle, not to take up any weapons, The Lord broke his promise. Generally, a gentleman is supposed to hold on to his promise, is to keep up his words. That's the quality of a gentleman. Once he has said, he doesn't go back on his words. He has made a commitment. The Lord made a commitment. But for his devotee, he broke that commitment. Even at the cost of some people saying, what kind of a Lord he is? He is lying, he is stealing, he is running away from the battle. But if we understand from, in a disciplic succession, we understand it's all for protection of his devotees, for giving pleasure to his devotees. Even at the cost of his reputation, even at the cost of people using abusive words. One time there was a person, he was in an aircraft, he was flying, and he got late, somehow rushed into the aircraft, reached the seat where he was supposed to sit, put the luggage on the top and sat. He was in the middle seat. The window seat, he saw some middle-aged lady, and on his left side, the aisle seat, he saw a young girl, 7 years old girl, sitting all by herself, all alone. The plane took off and she started speaking to that girl. And he saw that this girl was quite blissful, busy with her coloring book, crayons were there, and she was listening, and he could see that, you can make out. On the next seat somebody else was sitting, and on the front, back. The girl was apparently all alone, so he was wondering, how is it this young girl, 7 years old, traveling all by herself? Because on the right side somebody else was sitting, front, back, left, right, everyone strangers. And the girl all by herself is traveling, so he was wondering, how is it traveling alone? And she was quite busy with, her coloring book and crayons and all that. And suddenly there was some turbulence in the plane. The pilot came on the PA system and said, we're going through rough weather, and suddenly the plane started, wobbling. Sudden dip happened and started, some unusual movement which was not usual for all the passengers. And many of them got frightened. Some of them started screaming, some of them started crying. The lady on the right side, sitting next to the window, hands folded, started praying. And this person also never held on to the seat, and, total commotion in the plane. It was dipping and suddenly turning, and turn happened, and while all this thing was happening, the girl, the small little girl, was just sitting playing with the coloring book and crayons, totally unperturbed with what's happening. So then after about 20 minutes, again the pilot came on the PA system and says, I'm very, very sorry for all the inconvenience caused. We had gone through some rough weather. Now it's all fine, and very soon we'll be landing at the airport. So everyone had a sigh of relief, and they were quite, took a deep breath and trying to relax. And this person turned to the girl, that young little girl, and said, tell me, little one, while all of us were, all so-called adults were quite panic-stricken and we were all screaming, you were completely blissful, happy, undisturbed. By the way, why is it so? Said, my father is the pilot. He's in the cockpit. He's taking me back home. Why should I worry? So the small little girl had the faith that my father is there and my father is driving the plane. He will help me reach my house safely. So even for a devotee, again not imitation, nishtha. A stage comes when we may go through some rough times in our life, but we have firm faith the Lord is in control. Avashya Rakshibi Krishna I Vishwasa Palana. It's easy to say, it's easy to preach, but difficult to practice. A pure devotee of Lord has that conviction. Just like that little girl had a strong conviction, my father is there, she has nothing to worry, he will take him home. Likewise, a devotee of the Lord, he fearlessly practices Krishna consciousness, having firm faith that the Lord, my loving Father, Supreme Lord, is in charge of my life. He will take care. He'll take me back home, back to Godhead. So with these words, we'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.